We set our scene in Manhattan's Upper East Side, the year 2023. A mystery is brewing. Moran's Steakhouse is a restaurant with more than 75-star reviews, a shining 4.9 rating, seemingly hidden in an unmarked townhouse, and booked up for months in advance. It's more than enough to catch the eye of any foodie or influencer browsing the internet for their next exclusive dinner spot. The problem was, for those truly dedicated to trying to get a table, it was unclear if Moran's Steakhouse really even existed behind the walls of that mysterious house. And all those glowing reviews themselves were pretty bizarre. Great food, better service. The last time I felt so cared for was in my mother's womb. Moran walked into the restaurant at the start of the night, drenched in blood, carrying a freshly killed deer that he just caught in the forest upstate. He then prepared it in the kitchen and made an unforgettable meal. You are what you eat, and what you eat is what it eats. Nutriment originates from the soil in each and every single blade of grass. Sprouting with promise, basking in the sun, Moran urges you to feel each blade, savor its individuality, and thank it for the nutrients harvested from the sun to nourish your body. Each shoot has value in itself. Each shoot is unique. Each shoot exists only once. Each plate is uniform in quality, but distinctive in its existence. Cherish that singularity, the ephemerality, the serendipity of this course. Local blogger Ann Cadet is asked by one of her readers to investigate the mysterious steakhouse, and she obliges. I called the restaurant number. It rang 6 times before sending me to voicemail, and an outgoing message. Hello, you have not reached Moran, but if you leave a message, you probably will. I waited several days, but no one called. It was time for a field trip. Moran's was supposedly located on a typical Upper East Side block of townhouses. I decided to ask around. I met several longtime residents and none had heard of the restaurant. Some people, they come here and ask for the steakhouse around here, said one, but I don't know. Next I climbed the stoop stairs and rang the upper unit. I did not expect anyone to answer. When a young man in a ball cap, jeans, and tie-dye tee opened the door, I was totally caught off guard. He gave me a hard stare. Are you here for the... he said. Behind him, I saw what looked like a dimly lit living room with a long sofa and the world's largest wall-mounted television. For the restaurant? I said. No, he said. There's not a steakhouse here? I asked. He shook his head. What do you want? I never employ deception in my investigations, so I explained that I wrote a blog and that a reader had asked me to look into a steakhouse at this address. Could I look around or at least ask you a couple of questions? I said, no, he said. I was about to head home when I saw 2 ladies, Betty and Jenna, talking on the stoop of a nearby apartment building. I struck up a conversation and they invited me to sit and chat. I told them about the steakhouse mystery. It's listed on Google. It has more than 75-star reviews, I said. I don't think there's a restaurant there, is there? Said Betty, who has lived on the block for 46 years. I bet that they have some code words, said Jenna, like a speakeasy. They probably open the door and say, are you coming for the... and you have to say the code word to get in. Betty, we have to find out the code word. We gotta get into this steakhouse. Can I read you one of the steakhouse reviews on Google? I said, because the reviews are weird. Sure, said Jenna. We got to meet the head chef Moran, I read aloud. He came over to check on us, such a nice guy. My friends can only eat halal meat, so he took us to the back and we slaughtered a cow and performed a duo prayer together. It was a beautiful experience and I can't recommend it enough. It can be hard to get in, but it is well worth it. It's fake, said Betty. No one's slaughtering anything. If there was a restaurant, I would have seen deliveries, cabs, you would have heard noise. Anne concluded that the steakhouse was a complete fiction, just a joke using some random residential address, and she published this very entertaining post to her blog. But not long after, the post disappeared. Oh my god, they got her. It's some kind of Sweeney Todd situation. She ended up on the menu. Well, no. You see, what happened was, Anne received a call from Chef Moran himself, telling her the whole truth and explaining that this was just the beginning and that if she would remove the article for now, she was in for a much better story come the fall. She agreed to play along. So what was really going on inside that house? Well, But a quick tangent before we get into it. DashCon 2, again, DashCon 2, 3, technically the third DashCon, is this weekend. And if you cannot make it because it's completely sold out and in Canada, do not fear, do not despair, because you can still get tickets to Virtual Dash, which will give you access to live streams of the convention. Find out in real time whether I get beheaded at DashCon, as well as some excellent sounding online exclusive panels, frog tongues attach at the front of the mouth, and other fun facts, science and stories from the curator of herpetology at the Natural History Museum, Denmark, the Muppet Joker's Quiet Sock Puppet Craft Corner, Bionicle Engender, the unofficial Neopets crash course to late-stage capitalism, Vampires Never Die, why vampire fiction and symbolism never goes out of style. Ticket link will be down below. No, they did not pay me to say this. In fact, I technically paid them this year. That is how much I believe in the enriching magic of DashCon. And now, onto a word from this video's actual sponsor, Helix. Helix Sleep makes premium mattresses and bedding. No matter what kind of sleeper you are, Helix has something for you. The Helix lineup offers 20 unique mattresses and a variety of mattress toppers. There's soft, medium, and firm options, plus different options for side, stomach, and back sleepers. There's cooling options, and if all of that sounds overwhelming, do not fear, because you can take Helix's quick quiz that will match you with your perfect mattress. If you sleep with a partner, you can take the sleep quiz together and find something that's the perfect compromise for the two of you. Based on my results, Helix matched me with their Twilight Luxe mattress. This beautiful mattress that you see before your eyes, it is their firmest mattress. I do tend to like a firmer mattress because of the scoliosis demons that possess my spine. It is very easy for me to mess up my day if I do not sleep on a good surface. Helix has been reviewed against hundreds of competitors and is the most awarded. The Helix Midnight Luxe has been ranked best overall mattress by both Forbes and Wired. I've had my Helix mattress for around 3 years now, and I still love it. Me, my partner, our two beautiful baby Binguses are sleeping excellently on it. And if it makes you nervous to buy a mattress that you haven't tried out in person, don't worry, because Helix offers seamless returns and exchanges. You get a 120-night sleep trial. You can sleep on this baby for 120 nights before you decide if you really love it. There's also a lifetime warranty, there are financing options and flexible payment plans. Helix also recently launched their Comfort Adjust pillow. It's made with shredded memory foam that shapes to your body and Glaciotex heat conductive fabric that keeps you cool all night. It really does always feel like sort of cool. And it's wizardry. I don't know how the Helix wizards do it. You can also dissect it and choose exactly how much stuffing you want in there, so it's perfectly suited to you. Having a really high quality pillow like this that is specific to your body can help improve spinal alignment, help relieve head and neck pain. I've really been enjoying these new pillows and my mattress, obviously. So if you're looking for a new bed or pillows or a mattress topper, you can go to helixsleep.com/strangeeons to take advantage of their 4th of July exclusive partner offer and get 27% off. Site-wide. And now I return you to your regularly scheduled content. 2 years prior, in 2021, Danielle Egan moved to New York to a room in that house and found it packed with dozens of young people in their late teens and early 20s. The residents were mostly students, mostly in tech, and she sort of jokingly refers to the house as the hacker house. It was exactly what you would expect from that sort of living situation. It was messy, chaotic, loud, but it became her home and her roommates became her best friends.
It felt like a frat house. Like, I remember, because like when it was advertised, this beautiful like brownstone on the Upper East Side, and I get there and it looks like a frat house, and I'm like scared. I'm like, oh my God, I signed to like live here for at least a month. But it felt like freshman year of college, where there's just constantly action around you, and there's so many people that are so interesting and curious, and you're just spending, like hours and staying up late at night, always just like chatting or like putting together like little shenanigans or stuff like that.
Every 2 weeks, the roommates would have a community dinner. One night, Danielle's roommate, Moran, volunteered to cook steak. And it was so good that roommate dinner night was replaced entirely by bi-weekly Moran steak night.
Is that part of the process?
Oh yeah, the padding activates the protein and the fat in the steak. The dormant flavors.
What do you think makes the perfect steak?
You know what's funny is I didn't even like steak before Moran cooked steak for me. Like,
yeah.
He genuinely is really good at making steak. I think it being like really soft, I think a lot of that comes down just to having like really good meat that's very tender.
So one day, Danielle jokingly created a Google Maps listing for their house, dubbing it Moran's Steakhouse. Her friends and roommates began leaving reviews, each one trying to top the absurdity of the last. I heard so much about Moran's Steakhouse that I had to buy a flight ticket to New York City from my hometown in Oklahoma to try the steak there for my birthday dinner. The steak was solid, but the true experience was the service. Having the executive chef, Moran, spoon-feed me tableside was an out-of-body experience. Moran's Steakhouse is not a place. It's an emotion. It's not the destination, but the journey, a spiritual, impassioned pilgrimage to Flavortown. It's the restaurant to go to in New York, but definitely a hidden secret for the rich and famous. Honestly, I'm surprised to see it listed, as I believe they're trying to keep it underground. I bet they'll try and get this listing removed too, to keep it out of the public eye, so go there while you can. The chef is very enigmatic. Rumor has it that he beat 2 Michelin star chefs in a blind taste test, after which he dropped out of culinary school because he was already surpassing the work of his teachers. But all of this joking between friends was happening publicly on Google Maps, and soon, strangers wanted in on this supposed enlightenment via meat that existed in their house. The most dedicated began showing up to their door. One couple apparently walked fully into the house and asked for a table, despite the fact that by the time you're in the house, it's pretty clearly some kind of a frat house situation and not a fine dining establishment, which probably explains some of the annoyance that Anne Cadet was met with when she showed up. It was not really ideal, random people showing up at their house. But they didn't want to give up on what was becoming a very, very funny bit, so they created a Moran's Steakhouse website, claiming that the restaurant was booked up until spring, and offering a waitlist sign-up as consolation. Meanwhile, friends continued to write reviews of the steakhouse. Never in my life have I been so excited to write a review. It was 9:37 p.m. I arrived in the city late, in need of adequate sustenance. I had felt deeply unsatisfied by every morsel that entered my body that day, and was craving a dish that would not only ease my suffering, but bring me peace. Life, even. I felt a presence pull at my soul. My eyes gravitated towards an enormous blue door with rippled gold lettering. I unlatched the gate and ascended the steps, acknowledging the silence that surrounded me. Before I could even get close, a strange man opened the door. He had dark brown hair with his front bangs tied into a single ponytail on top of his head. His eyes were piercing, but comforting. An air of wealth and prosperity surrounding him. He welcomed me inside and sat me at a long white table. The presentation was excellent, the food marvelous, the service superb. The first bite was so wonderful that it brought me to tears. I am unwilling to say anything more about the details of this excursion, as it was a deeply emotional experience that I will remember for the rest of my life.
I mean, all the reviews were just absolutely ridiculous. Someone was like, I am a devout Hindu who never eats beef, but I had to try Moran Steakhouse. So someone is like, oh, we actually went back and performed a prayer over the cow, then slaughtered it before eating it. It's just the most ridiculous things.
Yeah.
And so people clearly didn't read their reviews and just were like, oh, a 5-star steakhouse.
Moran Steakhouse began to appear in search results, climbed the rankings of Upper East Side fine dining establishments. Moran, Danielle, and their roommates had become the gatekeepers of the most exclusive reservation in Manhattan. The waitlist amassed hundreds, then thousands of names of eager local foodies who would never be satisfied because Moran's Steakhouse wasn't actually real. But of course, Danielle and her roommates began to wonder to themselves, what if it was?
So this is Matt calling from Moran Steakhouse. I see Mr. Calvin put his name down on our waitlist in January of this year. And
yeah.
what is your last
I was like,
name?
is this even real?
Yeah, so we finally have an opening, and although it's not on the 83rd Street location, we're still fully booked there, we have another basically secret location in the East Village. It's intimate, it's low-key. We do have a few spots available there for dinner on Saturday, September 23rd. Would you both be interested?
A harmony of living things, minute and massive, simple and complex, youthful and mature, breathing the same air, treading upon the same soil, the bright, blissful days, the frigid, unforgiving nights, heat, snow, drought, storm, all earthly experiences felt in tandem. Is this not community? Is this not what unites us? Consume this dish, with not one but every sense, each ingredient as both itself and part of the collective. The sweet, wide-eyed naivete of adolescence, tender in the first wobbling stages of life, Not yet coarsened by the relentless reality of the world, still malleable, an infinity of possibilities splayed out before you. But with this immense array of prospects comes an almost paralyzing plethora of potentiality. We often hear of the paradox of choice. An abundance of options leaves us less satisfied. The boundlessness that makes adolescence so precious can be concurrently immobilizing and terrifying. Tonight, we present you with a set menu. The feast is predetermined. Each course has only a singular choice, but even we cannot limit what you choose to do with your meal. Whether or not you wish it, your fate rests firmly in your own hands.
Flavor is good.
Yeah.
Texture is odd.
Kind of like arrange these last two survivors. Okay, beautiful. This is around the time Anne Cadet enters the story. Her blog post was the only media coverage of Moran Steakhouse, and therefore was the #1 in the Google results. Its revelation that something shady was going on had the potential to jeopardize the roommates' budding scheme. So Moran called Anne and confessed that this was indeed a little bit of tomfoolery on the part of himself and his roommates, and that if she would temporarily take down the article and, trust the process, it would be worth it. And she accepted the proposition. So this gave our schemers two things. Firstly, an outsider who was invested in the story, holding them accountable, and a timeline, because Moran told Anne that they were going to pull off their big plan by the fall. So that's what they were going to do. Danielle, Moran, and a third roommate, Riley, became the heads of the operation. They had just a few months to figure out how to create a real fine dining steakhouse experience. Moran was, of course, the head chef and the face of the whole operation. Riley handled the behind-the-scenes business and legal stuff. Danielle was the creative director responsible for the aesthetics of the experience. Moran Steakhouse had now outgrown the chaotic student house that it was born in. They were going to need a real venue, and after some scouting, Danielle settled on Bathhouse Studios, which was a really bold choice. This is a stark white space that's typically used for art shows or photography shoots, but Danielle was inspired by its quote-unquote striking liminal aura. She said on Substack, all white everything, with splashes of steak, blood red. I wrote on my design board, I wanted it to feel beautiful, yet slightly unsettling, like an art piece you're afraid to touch. Beautiful. And then there is perhaps her greatest creation, the menu. A 5-course set meal costing $114. The bovine circle of life, a laser-etched 16-inch wooden circle requiring diners to turn it as they read, sort of like a clock. If you think about it, another subtle nod to the theme of time's passage. Do you still have one of the menus? And if so,
Yes,
can I see it?
Yeah, let me get it.
Oh my god.
You can see all the details, and you could only read it by turning it. And I was literally writing this a few days before, on the subway on my phone in the notes app, being what would be funny?
Yeah.
And then I had a friend who asked, is this ChatGPT generated? And I was like, no. I wrote this.
Our masterminds were insistent that this was not a scam, the food needed to actually be good, and Moran's steak was already good enough to change the lives of 20-year-old students, but was it fine dining good? Just to be sure, they got in touch with a friend of a friend who used to own a Michelin Guide restaurant, and he helped critique the dishes until they were perfect, telling Moran, if you cook it exactly like this on the night, it'll be one of the best meals they've ever had. That's how I imagine all chefs talk, just really intense. Hand gestures. Numerous friends who worked in the restaurant scene told them that $114 for this 5-course fine dining experience was quote-unquote suspiciously cheap, but the goal was not to make a profit, and in fact, doing so by tricking people into coming to a fake restaurant run by a bunch of kids for a joke is kind of an ethical gray area. They wanted to recoup the costs of materials and break even, but that was pretty much it. Then they were going to need staff. Friends and friends of friends eagerly volunteered, people who they barely knew were willing to skip school or work or fly to New York to do this. People were really energized by the idea of it, and soon they had a team of around 60 people, which is so many for the venue size. Every single table was going to have its own dedicated waiter. What we lack in experience, we make up for in massive overstaffing. Moran very accurately said, suddenly, months of planning was coming to fruition. There was 1 week until the event. Riley acquired the licenses necessary to serve food and alcohol in New York and the restaurant supplies, while Danielle handled the venue's interior design needs, rentals, decor, etc. They had last-minute issues printing the laser-etched menus, and apparently Moran ended up sleeping overnight in a makerspace, setting an alarm every 20 minutes to switch out the wood. Riley ended up running through the rain to an ATM to take out $700 in cash to pay the wine distributor the night before because they just found out they only took cash. It was glorious chaos.
We were like arguing over like last minute details and like running around trying to get things, which I think was good because as soon as the chaos starts simmering down, you start thinking too much and you start like freaking out. It helps you keep your mind in like the present and like solving the initial problem as opposed to like thinking big picture, like, oh my God, what are we doing?
They invited the media. Riley cold emailed various companies, and some of them were intrigued. The New York Post and the New York Times would both be sending reporters to dine at the grand opening of Moran's Steakhouse, the grand opening and only night of Moran's Steakhouse. You started to worry about the media coverage. The specific line was it really paranoia to think this project had the potential to ruin my life? So,
Yes.
like, what were you scared of with more and more media involvement?
They were kind of like surprised that we actually wanted to create a positive experience. So they were seeming like they thought it was more like a prank, like we were trying to like make fun of people for like believing it. They kind of put all these fears in my mind. I was like, oh, like these people clearly completely misunderstand like the premise of what we're doing. What kind of story are they going to write? I, until recently, was on a very traditional career trajectory. Like I worked in big tech, like straight out of graduating college. I don't know. I feel like there is a sense of like, oh my God, if you do anything, you step out of line, like you're gonna get fired, you're never gonna be able to get like a job again. I feel like there is that kind of fear in the industry. I know like Moran and Riley didn't have that at all because they were like running their own startup. So like they didn't care. Like, you know, any coverage for them would be good coverage.
The small army of volunteer staff arrived early at Bathhouse Studios to begin prepping ingredients, seasoning steaks, icing cakes, unpacking and setting up the interiors.
I've been doing a ton of stuff. I've been in the kitchen most of the time, so I was peeling garlic, helping with cake baking.
Working on the salads, so I'm doing zesting as a little garnish on top of all of the salads.
I was put in charge of the meatballs, so I had to test the recipe twice and then make the entire batch today. We need 18 pounds of meat.
Whoa! Good. It's gonna make meatballs before.
This is my third time making meatballs, ever, in my life. And I can put that on my resume now. I think I've made like nearly 200 meatballs just today.
We currently have paused on meatball duties because we ran out of cheese. So we're gonna come up and take a look at what's happening in the rest of the restaurant. Okay.
Literally figured it out via Google.
Love that.
Ooh. It's like on a cruise ship.
The silverware gets returned after every course, so every course you have to give them new silverware. That's kind of what fancy restaurants do, I guess. We are giving. The bussers do, yes.
And soon, Moran's Steakhouse was ready to serve its first meal. Danielle wrote, "The theater was set. It felt exactly like gazing upon an empty stage from the wings minutes before your performance. It felt strangely reverent."
You need more milk?
The service here is amazing. Thank you.
They're our finest.
Oh,
I went deep into the cellar for that one.
deep into the milk cellar?
Yeah.
The pinnacle of the night, the beating heart of Moran's. At full maturity, at full strength, an adult setting out on the world, enlightened and burdened by knowledge. At the peak and the limit of potential, a muscular bovine, galloping wildly across the open plain, presents a tougher beef to digest. A fat bovine, snoozing among the dandelions and daffodils, presents a soft, tender beef to dissolve on the tongue. But how can we assert a creature's worth is determined by its consumption, by the value it provides to others? What does it imply about humans' place in the ecosystem? Us, creatures so great, we exist about and tangential to the food chain, in the third plane, seizing from any level at whim, bending nature to our desires. At our zenith, what colossal feats are we capable of? Upon entering the grand arched doorway of Moran's Steakhouse, one of the many Many hosts leads you to your table in the dimly lit dining room. Along the way, you may take notice of the 3D printed busts of the chef himself, or that one table has been covered with a pile of dirt and some plants, symbolizing the restaurant's farm-to-table practices. Your table is draped in a crisp white tablecloth and adorned with an arrangement of white flowers in a milk bottle vase. One wall is covered by a large projection, a black and white looping video of steaks being cooked. Classical music plays. But if you listen closely, you'll identify that it is, in fact, classical covers of popular songs like Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up and Toto's Africa. You are offered the menu, which is comically large, and you're not quite sure how to hold it. Okay, it seems like weird menus is their thing. Another wall, it's decorated with all these posters commemorating past menu themes. Holy cow, the quandary of Genesis, Pangaea and the Paleozoic era. Like, what the hell is bone marrow ice cream? God damn, these people are pretentious even for Manhattan. You start to wonder if you're underdressed. Another wall displays a photo gallery of these obviously photoshopped images of Chef Moran socializing with various historical and political figures, Obama, JFK, Marilyn Monroe. I would recommend suspending your understanding of linear time, Moran advised when asking about the images. The chef is busy doing his rounds in the dining room, sometimes muttering to himself, hands clasped behind his back, chefly. Other times he's charming the guests, looking distinguished in his double-breasted suit, but very young. Very, very young. In fact, all of the staff, now that you think about it, look barely out of high school. The sommelier serving you offers you a choice between 3 reds and the milk. And you know what? The spirit of whatever the hell is going on here is sort of infectious, so you order the milk. As it is poured ceremoniously into your wine glass, you are informed that the milk comes from a cow in Uganda named Philip. Yes, Philip. Common name for a female cow, Moran comments. On September 3rd, 2023, Moran's Steakhouse served 120 lucky guests plucked from the waitlist of thousands. As curious guests arrived, unbeknownst to them, in the kitchen space below the dining room, staff were watching a feed from a hidden camera.
The first customers. I'm scared. I'm so scared. I hope they like it.
What was your target audience?
So the thing is, we basically just invited people off the wait list. But I think that clientele was generally people that were a little bit older, probably, actually frequent fine dining establishments a lot more. Most people were pretty dressed up when they arrived.
Love that. Waitstaff were free to do a little LARPing, make up a backstory about being from a lineage of Parisian milk connoisseurs or whatever, as they make small talk with their tables. And yes, people did really order the milk. Why do you think that so many people volunteered to be part of it? What drew people to it?
I think just we have a lot of friends that are fun and down to clown. I think it's also just such a novel experience. More than half the people that came didn't live in New York. We didn't live in New York at the time. We all flew out just to do this. I think people crave mischief and whimsy, creating fantastical experiences. And I think more people should just do them. I think people think things are a lot harder than they are, but if a bunch of us who have literally no restaurateuring experience are able to create this big spectacle, yeah. I think really anybody can.
Moran called me one night and he was like, the steakhouse is happening. It's gonna be on this day. Will you be there? And I was like, I'm in Mexico City. He's like, you can fly. I was like, that's a good point. And so I came.
And so he texted me and he was like, Madeline, call me right away. It's urgent. I need to know something. So I get on the phone with him and he's like, this was June. He's like, are you free? September 25th, we're doing this Steakhouse thing. So I'm sure, Riley, I'll be there.
My friend Riley's been talking about this for a year. And we talked about it 4 or 5 weeks ago when he was figuring out what the recipe should be, and I was like, I gotta come, I gotta be part of it.
I didn't expect so many people to be passionate. Most of us, I think, are just college students, and we're just here on a random Saturday night. No one's getting paid, regardless. Whenever I see someone running out, being oh, I need a bus, I need a waiter, someone's always available to help out, which I think is just so cool.
I've never worked in a restaurant before and just made this happen. It's incredible.
2 friends were planted in the restaurant to stage a fake proposal. Another small gaggle was planted on the street outside to hold up signs and cheer for Drake, as if he were going to show up at the restaurant. Apparently some random bystanders even joined in at one point.
There's some people that they came there thinking it was real, they left there thinking it was real. There's some people that came there thinking it was real and they left being that was kind of strange, actually. And there were some people that definitely came in knowing that there was something a little weird, and and they were just curious, which I also love that. They thought we were like, they asked, oh, are you guys like NYU performance arts students? We got that a lot. Like, oh, is this like theater?
I went into the kitchen and there were 50 people in there. I wanted to find someone who would confess, said retired Colonel David Menegon. It's bullshit. I'm having a great time. Another diner inquired about purchasing the menu. Moran quoted him $75 for it, and he bought it. People were enjoying the food too. Some requested takeout boxes for their unfinished portions, which hadn't been anticipated. There weren't any takeout boxes, so Riley had to run across the street and buy a bunch from an ice cream shop so that they could continue to provide their impeccable service.
I honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was gonna be more chaos, but this is like the right level of chaos.
I didn't think it'd be a train wreck necessarily, but I'm impressed by the level of professionality that everybody is bringing to it.
I looked on the camera and then there were like actually people sitting at the thing. It was like, oh, this is actually like so real, and like it blew me away.
I'm watching the videos and it seems like people like enjoy the food, so yeah, I thought it was gonna be really chaotic and we get like angry people.
Everyone's like very nice and calm. Like I feel like they think it's totally legit, a real restaurant. Like I'm like, how's it going? They're like, we're good. Like seems like no one suspects a thing, honestly.
Yeah, and I think it makes me really respect people who work in restaurants because it's like a rush, but then you also want to make it well. So
that isn't to say that everything went perfectly. On the night of the event, Danielle learned of one hiccup that Moran and Riley had been keeping from her, an enemy who became known as Michael Asshole. This was another writer who got in contact with them because he was planning to publish a story on Moran's Steakhouse, but he wanted to publish it before the event, which of course had the potential to jeopardize it all. Same situation as with Ann Cadet's blog post. And Michael Asshole was given the same treatment. They told him the whole story, that it was kind of a joke, but they were planning something big, and that it was going to be totally worth it if he just held off on publishing. Problem was, he refused, saying that he absolutely needed to publish the story now so that he could be the first or whatever. So Moran led him on, promising exclusive access, behind the scenes stuff, implying that they might have had a celebrity chef on board, and then Michael Asshole agreed. And on the day of the event, the hosts and security were instructed to, under no circumstances, let in Michael Asshole. So that was a little bit of a risky move, just a little bit risky, and Michael Asshole did indeed show up demanding his exclusive access and was barred from entry by security. Danielle found out all of this after the fact, but you know what? By then it was dealt with. He was gone. It turned out fine. She finally started to relax a little bit. They were getting away with it. When she went to check in with the New York Times reporter who was interviewing people as they left, the reporter told her that she had started to wonder if the diners were plants and that she was the one being pranked because of how positive the feedback was. Some of them were maybe not so observant, or just very accustomed to the weird pretensions of Manhattan fine dining and assumed that this was all within the reasonable threshold of strangeness for a real restaurant. Some improvements could be made, agreed to Upper East Side gourmands I spoke with on my way out, citing their experience eating at Michelin-starred restaurants as their judgment credentials, and noting they were disappointed they'd been on the waitlist for years, only to get reservations at this location and not the one in their neighborhood. Like with any restaurant, there were a handful of displeased customers too. One table dined and dashed on a bill over $300, which is crazy. Another realized that something was up and didn't find it funny and requested their bill be comped. Others charged back their bill in the week following when the story went viral, saying that they had been scammed and they thought this was a real 100-year-old steakhouse, despite the fact that they were given so many opportunities to realize that this was not a serious restaurant. All requested refunds were given, the intention being to make sure that everyone had a positive experience. Yes, it was a joke, but it wasn't a joke at the expense of the customers. They were invited to participate in this silly world that Danielle and her friends had created, to eat some genuinely good food and have a laugh. It's New York. You can eat anywhere, said opera singer Scott Thomas, but for it to be this fun is priceless.
When we were setting up the space, the security guard that we had to have there, the security guard, the space manager, they had very little context what we were doing. And I remember overhearing in the beginning being like, yeah, I guess these kids are trying to create a restaurant. I don't really get it. What, why? And then at the end, they came up to me. They're like, oh my God, this was so incredible. You should do this every week. This is so fun. And I think just seeing them go from confusion to just delight was incredible.
There is always a level of absurdity and performance to fine dining. I spent the summer, before my YouTube channel was monetized, working at a restaurant owned by an evil celebrity chef on King Street in Toronto. So, oh boy, do I know it. I did have to live in fear of Drake eating there. It was really bad. And just all of the self-mythologizing and the overly descriptive menus. And this dish marries flavors from chef's childhood with the technical mastery gained during his time spent studying in France. And this one he invented on that episode of fucking whatever episode of MasterChef. And people sitting there in their outfits, listening to 19-year-old me, who had probably eaten 4 protein bars for lunch, explain chef's recommended way of constructing the perfect bite from the spread before you with the cadence of someone handcuffed to a radiator. It's all a sham. It's theater. And I am to this day fascinated by the way that a restaurant that takes itself so seriously constructs a world with its own language and norms and aesthetics that are sometimes objectively fucking silly, especially in a huge city like New York or Toronto where everyone is competing to create something novel. And while you are inside the walls of that restaurant, you have to play along as if this is normal. Moran Steakhouse takes the idea of pretentious restaurant to the extreme. It asks how much of that kind of familiar and even expected absurdity can we pile on before it breaks people and becomes obviously a joke. And by crossing that line, I think, by shattering the immersion in the expected pretentious restaurant world, it becomes joyful. Moran Steakhouse's final guests were gone by 11 p.m. that night. And by midnight, the space had been entirely dismantled and vacated, as if it had never existed. Its staff, let loose onto the streets of New York, scattered to various after-parties to celebrate their success. Since Genesis, us mortals have questioned what happens in the great beyond, if it does indeed exist. A quandary that has united societies, divided fellow men, incited love, brought forth war. Millennia later, we're no closer to the answer. Millennia from now, this will remain just as unanswerable. Perhaps even daring to speculate is a performance of immense hubris. If there is indeed some form of cosmic leveling, whether through eternal bliss and eternal damnation, through reincarnation, or through any of the variants someone or other believes to be true, if that knowledge was thrust upon us, would that change our way of living? Is our internal moral compass insufficient to inspire us? Regardless of our piteous questions and our futile attempts to answer them, the clock ticks on. The sun rises on another day and the life cycle begins anew. Do you think our cow went to Catholic heaven from the Bible? The following week brought an absolute media frenzy. The New York Times and New York Post published their articles, and the story was swiftly picked up by other outlets across the internet.
What started off as an elaborate prank has now gone viral.
Was it a success? Yeah.
An idea born in the pandemic by a bunch of roommates.
It was both incredibly overwhelming and incredibly underwhelming at the same time, in the sense of most people that I run into have just heard of Moran Steakhouse, which is kind of insane. But at the same time, it's not like I show up at work and everybody's read all of the articles about it, right? People don't really think about it, and people don't really care, I guess, about what other people are doing all that much in a way that everyone thinks that they will. So I think it was kind of even though I took this huge risk, it was really rewarding, but also everything is kind of the same afterwards, and it's actually not that big of a deal. Now, whenever I think about doing some shenanigan, I'm always well, it's not as big as that was, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully one day I will be putting together things that are way more elaborate than that, but now I'm just kind of well, this is no risk compared to that, and I've already done that and ended up well. So I think it just gave me a lot more courage to go out and do things.
While the media coverage didn't disparage her and her friends or ruin her life, Danielle wasn't fully satisfied with the way the Moran Steakhouse was portrayed. Most who covered it went for the kind of surface-level sensationalism of crazy prank, iconoclastic mastermind young tech bros pull a joke on snooty New York society.
People described it as a prank. And I think that really just didn't encapsulate that we were trying to create a positive experience for people, and we weren't trying to make fun of them. We were just we created this ridiculous world throughout all these reviews, and we just want to bring that to life, and we want people to experience that. So many people wrote about us without even talking to us, and then just would add things that were untrue, not even necessarily in a bad way. They just would make things up. And I was wow, if you can't even cover this really silly story where there's a lot of primary sources available, how can you cover any actual important information that's happening in the world?
Some made comparisons to The Shed at Dulwich, a fake restaurant created by British writer Uba Butler for Vice. He was able to scam the restaurant to being #1 rated in London on TripAdvisor, despite it not existing. And for the grand finale, he made it real for one night and served people frozen meals in his backyard. And then revealed all and checkmate TripAdvisor. It's not a great comparison. The Shed at Dulwich was conceptualized as an expose of TripAdvisor for a Vice documentary. I don't think it was mean-spirited towards its hypothetical clientele. You know, the people who ate there also seemed to have a weirdly wholesome time. But it's not the same as the way Moran's Steakhouse kind of evolved organically through friends joking around. It's totally different. They're completely different stories.
Totally different. Oh my god, that was like another thing I found so frustrating. Sorry, it was like, because people were like, you just ripped them off. And I was like, I literally did not know they existed. Like, what they were doing was like, it was meant to be a social commentary.
The beauty of Moran's Steakhouse is that there kind of isn't like a big point. There isn't like a checkmate social commentary moment. I mean, I like to kind of read into it as a commentary on like the inherent absurdity of fine dining because of my personal experience with that, but it wasn't like meant that way. And to put in months of effort to rent a real venue, to get licenses, manage 60+ volunteers and everything else they did for like no reason, but to create something joyful and weird, even though it might go wrong and hurt their career prospects, is like honestly inspiring. A lesson in not taking anything too seriously, whether that is the deeply stupid world of fine dining or a corporate culture that is trying to crush your individuality. Like the cow, we are all just mortal meat creatures, okay? You get it. And I should stop. Thank you so much to Danielle for writing the Substack article, which made me obsessed with this story in the first place, and for the interview. And thank you to everyone whose videos and photos appear in this video, because they were definitely instrumental in bringing it all to life. And thank you, dear viewer, for watching. And I will see you in another one very soon. And now I'm going to eat this nice slice of cake that has been tempting me this whole time. Okay. Kiss, kiss, I'll see you later.